Welcome to Redefining Plastics Podcast. I'm Justin Riney. Today I've got Dave Ribbens. Dave and I have known each other for, Dave, 20 years, and wanted to bring Dave on to talk about plastics. Dave is not a plastics guy. I'm sure he would rather be doing about 50 other things tonight, but we appreciate him taking the time to talk through this. And I'm calling this Conversations with Consumers, but really it's just an excuse for me to talk to my friends. So really want to start off with Dave. Tell us about yourself and what you do.
Justin, thanks for having me on. As Justin mentioned, my name is Dave Ribbens, and for the last 20 years or so, I have spent my career in sales, and mostly in software sales, both as an individual contributor and as a leader. Most recently just got out of that to join my dad doing recruiting. So now I'm executive recruiter working for a company called Cooper and Associates, which again is just me and my dad, but helping people find new opportunities and helping organizations find the right person for the right job. So it's a lot of fun, very rewarding, challenging at times, as you can see both sides where, certainly companies have too many candidates and need to sort through them, and then vice versa. When organizations need a specific candidate or need a certain skill set, we're there to help. So what we do really, Justin, is help companies, again, find that right person. We specialize by getting 3 to 5 curated candidates for that person, for that position, so that people can review them and hopefully take a little bit of time, effort out of the recruiting themselves.
Yeah, recruiting is always tough. I've got a lot of respect for the industry. It's not something I could do well, but appreciate you being on and what you do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Looking forward to talking about plastics.
I'm sure
when you said
are.
Plastics the first time, Justin, what came to mind is paper or plastic, right? Is the question that I always get at the grocery store. So
yeah, and what's interesting is it used to be because the grocery stores wanted you to say plastic because it was better for them from a cost perspective. Everybody wanted to move away from paper, and now they are looking for.
And now we're getting joined by the.
And now we got another individual.
Ribbens.
Yeah. So we already kicked this thing off, Kevin, but this is hilarious because this is exactly what I'm looking for. So we're calling this Conversations with Consumer.
Okay.
Dave already went through his whole spiel. So now it is Kevin's turn to talk about who Kevin is, what does he do, and how excited is he to talk about plastics today.
Oh my God. All right. Man, I really wish I'd heard Dave's. Okay, Kevin Ribbens. I am a consultant for Microsoft. I've worked in consumer retail for the last, 20 years on and off. And what do you want? And I'm here to talk about plastics, my relationship with plastics. Plastic rules.
Whatever you want to talk about.
What I really appreciate about there's really two things, when Kevin gets introduced. One, I love that his intro just came in. I mean, we'll see it on the video, him with the hair and the bouncing. It was amazing. Yeah. And then number two, you got a new fancy technology, man, that's like following you around, zooming in and out.
Yeah, those are the advantages of a Copilot Plus PC. Get with the times, kids.
Good Lord. Yeah, I love it. Hey, that's a perfect plug for.
Thank you.
Hey, if I'm going to plug my stuff, I got to let that happen. So I told your brother this. So obviously we got two brothers on this call, if you can't tell by looking at the two. But I already told Dave, we're going to try to keep the language above board here so Jamie doesn't have to beep it as much as we go along. But you know what? Just do what you do. I think that's more fun.
Just beep it.
Yeah, no. And just to be clear to everybody, I didn't prep you guys at all for this, right? Like we didn't talk about questions. We didn't talk about anything. It's literally, I'm just going to rapid fire stuff at you. And I want to know.
That's true. I only did 6 hours of research on plastics via the internet beforehand. So I am well prepared.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was riveting. They just had a blast with
Good
that.
Tuesday. Good Tuesday.
Yeah, anything to keep your mind off of what's going on today, which is
the
election for everybody. The fact that I got you guys wrangled into this when there's an election going on too is very entertaining to me.
It's pretty good. We already talked about the orange man, Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
We're gonna try to
have a good chat.
try to keep the politics out of this thing as much as possible. But yeah, it's tough to do when you're in election day. But all right, so first things first, we're going to do initial thoughts, like just first thing that pops in your head. What do you think when you hear the word plastic? Dave, you already kind of mentioned the paper or plastic, but if there's anything else that you think of.
Yeah, I mean, I also almost for my beverage tonight got myself a plastic cup. However, I don't have any plastic cups. They are all glass, sir.
Oh.
So I did go.
We're gonna need to get
plastic.
you to buy some red party cups made out of high impact polystyrene.
Yeah. That's
beer
funny.
pong.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind, and I mean, honestly, is unfortunately pollution. Like now, I think that's because plastic is everywhere. Like there's especially working around consumer electronics for as long as I have, the amount of plastic that's involved in manufacturing all of that stuff, right? So I guess everywhere is like the first word.
Hey, it's fair. It's fair. And what's interesting is plastics float.
As we're
right?
trying to not be political, Kevin just
No. This is exactly what I'm looking for.
That's market penetration. That's market penetration. If you had some other chemical that was in everything, then I would say that. But there's not anything that compares to the market penetration of being in products. I'm guessing.
Wood. Yeah. Is that true?
Maybe in paper, maybe.
Yeah, paper. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about packaging, then plastics is a large portion of that. But if you're talking about just everything, like materials everywhere, wood's a big piece. You got concrete is huge. There's a ton of things out there, but it's fair. I was actually hoping one of you would mention the waste and pollution. So it kind of ties into what I wanted to talk through today. But the thing that most people, when they think plastics, they think of the picture of the turtle and a bag. Those are photoshopped too, for the record. Those aren't actual photos, but
hopefully you can flash those up in the podcast.
I got them here.
How jacked up would it be as a photographer if you're like, I'm gonna save you, but first I gotta snap this pic for the gram.
So these are all Photoshop. So this guy actually went through and took all these pictures.
For the record, Copilot Plus PC would make a much better.
Oh, good God. I love it. I love the fact that you're really pushing the product.
AI render.
They're using their AI. Yeah, that's right.
I think when you look at plastics, right, specifically packages, you see it floating, you see foam, you see bags blowing around, but all packages are littered. The problem that we have with plastic is it floats and everybody can see it. Everything else is at the bottom of the ocean. We're floating right there at the top. So we'll talk through all that stuff. But so I guess the second question is how tied in are you on sustainability? Like, are you trying to conserve? Is it something that drives you? Is it something that is just a nice to have? Or is it like, this is my freaking passion and this is what I'm doing?
I would say it's my wife's passion.
Fair enough. Your wife's passion becomes your passion very quickly.
We use a company called Ridwell. That also comes to mind because there's a lot of plastic that I cannot in Colorado, in the city of Denver, recycle in my recycling bin. So, even like the Amazon packages, right? The loose bags, we put in the Ridwell box because you're technically not supposed to recycle them.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm constantly getting educated about, is like what you can normally recycle in the city of Denver versus not. So it's a challenge for sure, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't factor in to my thought or my decision making on like a moment by moment basis. I think on a larger scale, I don't know if I've even been faced with large scale like environmental impact like moments. Like I haven't built a house to say, okay, I'm gonna, do this in the most like LEEDs kind of certified kind of. We recycle, but Denver is kind of infamous for being really terrible at sorting, to Dave's point. So like there's a bunch of other steps that we probably air quotes should be taking. And I think some of those decisions that I used to maybe consider a step above and beyond, like bringing my own bag to go grocery shop, that's legislated in now. And we have so many damn bags now that like the funny part of I've joked
But
with
how many
Nikki,
times you forget your bags?
That's what I mean. So we may be creating more waste just simply by doing that. I will say that
on that point, Kevin, the New Jersey bag ban, the first one that went into place, there was a 40% increase in plastic consumption in bags.
I bet.
Just because of the fact that people forgot them. Those bags are thicker, and a lot of that stuff goes to waste. And it's,
And a lot of them were made out of primarily plastic anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good intentions, right? Everybody's trying to do the right thing. The legislators are trying to do the right thing, and then they end up making poor decisions because they don't really know. And it's nobody's fault other than it's just plain ignorance, and it not in a negative way, just they don't know.
Yeah.
So if I was to ask you, what is the greenest packaging material? If you were to think of the one thing, like if I was standing there looking on a store shelf, that would be the greenest one.
No packaging.
On an everyday shelf?
That's obviously the greenest.
Great call, Dave.
Yes. The product's just there, bro.
Wow.
Yeah, like a banana.
Price tag over there.
Yeah.
Product.
Look, a banana can thwart a lot of arguments.
Banana.
It's proof of God.
That is a good point.
Anyway.
This is a little bit off topic, but before I met my wife, like I'd go to the grocery store, use those plastic bags and fill it up, You put my bananas in a plastic bag. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but now I don't get to use the plastic bags really at all. And now you just Jamie, you gotta put that beep right there in the cart, and then you gotta wash it off later.
Yeah.
JR, would you say the green is the question the greenest packaging that's used in
just like if you're thinking paper, plastic,
you didn't like my answer?
Metal.
Didn't I
No,
win
I
next
love
round?
I love
Next
the
round.
answer. Yeah.
hemp?
Hemp. You're going with hemp on that. That was unexpected.
Burlap that is woven. I mean, it's also got to be the most economical at $95 for a small bag.
Yeah. What's that? What's the clay where you dig down deep in Colorado? Red clay. And then you could make that into packaging.
No, the mining process, the energy excreted in the mining process alone would probably. I'm gonna say paper just to be a bleep.
Yeah, I think if you were to ask most consumers, that's probably the answer they'd give you. They would say paper, which is entertaining to me. There's nothing wrong with paper. I love paper. For a lot of the things that it does, it's great. It's
you can write on it.
It's real hard to write on plastic.
And it's something that
tough to write on.
you grow more trees, right? And it truly can be a circular product. But if you look at scientific studies, plastics is actually the lowest carbon emission solution out of all of them. So what you need to do then is, how do you separate what you talked about earlier, which is pollution, You guys talked about the concerns for pollution, but then you also talk about the fact that it's actually decarbonizing the more plastic you use in packaging. So
are we equating pollution with just adding carbon?
No, I look at it holistically. From my perspective,
I think the problem I have with
both.
plastic is it never goes anywhere. Like, you can't do anything with it. Paper you can just burn, and that's where you get the carbon emission, probably.
Yeah. No, you can reuse some paper. Paper is not infinitely recyclable because the fibers will break down after a while. But plastics, depending on the type of plastics and where you live, it can be recycled hundreds of times, depending on what it is that you buy. The question always becomes, is it being recycled? And I think in a lot of cases it is, but most people don't believe it. There's a trust issue. But if you look at the journey of paper in the 70s, everybody looked at paper as being like possibly the worst thing that you could do. It's like you're cutting down trees, deforestation. You had people climbing Empire State Building with big signs saying "Save the forests." And now it's like everybody talks paper. Paper is the best solution. I just think it's interesting how much that's turned in the last 50 years. But so, and you guys have already talked about it. You're both active in recycling. Do you guys compost at all?
Composters, yeah. We got a big compost.
Yeah,
don't
like
say
compost
that so
pile
loud because we'll end up composting.
Yeah.
Compost pile.
We've talked
and
about
in
it.
the city of Denver, they give you a compost bin that I get to put out. You get both a small pail, right, for food scraps, but we're also some urban chicken farmers, Justin. So
I love that.
We get to put a lot of our scraps into the chicken coop. So yeah, when you think about
Kim's got you regimented there. She's putting you to work.
I'm telling you.
If
Mickey hears any of it, it's all the same.
Well, ever since like COVID too, it was like, okay, if we had to live on our own, garden, could we eat? So we have like kale. We had a whole bunch of sweet stuff in the garden in our front beds this year. Anyways, yes, compost.
Yeah.
Boom.
All right. So, do you believe what you put in your curbside bin is recycled? You mentioned earlier that Denver is notorious for not being good at this.
Well,
that's the first I've heard of this, by the way. I've actually not heard anything like that.
Oh, that's good. Dude, it was like a Westward article, which is like a local mag. Seriously, it's probably 10 years ago. That was like, recent study tracked plastic from the plastic recycle bin. And it just went to the landfill. And it's like, I mean, again,
it's funny.
Well, what's fascinating is California, where I used to live in California in Roseville, they called it one bin. You throw everything in the same garbage.
Right.
So when I was from Colorado coming to California, it was crazy, right? You throw,
they're supposed to do the sorting. Yeah.
And so to Kevin's point, I think there's two things. One, I didn't realize how much you got rinsed out. Yeah. Right? Like you do milk carton, you do pasta sauce. Like you got to rinse that, and it's got to be like dry before you put it all in there and all this stuff. So I think that part's a challenge for most people. And then, do I really believe that it makes it all to where it's supposed to be? I'm skeptical on that.
All right. That's fair. That article he said was in the Westward magazine. Is that what that was? Or so
many movies.
This isn't like a works cited, right? This is not what Kevin's going to do.
No, this is us just talking. I'm not holding anybody accountable for any of this.
Yeah, I'll be held in contempt.
Yeah.
Do kids still need to do that? They put a bibliography at the end? Is that what it's called?
No, they just throw it all into Chat GPT and
absolutely.
It'll do
it all. And as long as you have...
What's Microsoft say?
As long as you've got Word with the references tab in your top ribbon, you can go ahead and add that citation with just 3 clicks. Call me to ask me more.
Hey, what's that? Is that little Clippy guy? Does he still help you, Clippy?
Clippy's legit. You can order like Clippy gear from the Microsoft internal site. I'm gonna try to get a Clippy hoodie to wear for the holiday.
All right, JR, we're gonna need Clippy to make an appearance here on this.
If I had it on my machine, I would put it up on the screen. Just that would take me way back. But
I love it.
The tracking article kind of took me on an aside here because there was this. I think it was CBS News or somebody. I can't remember who it was. They had thrown Apple AirTags in with grocery bags in the store drop-offs to check and see where they went. And all of them ended up in places that you wouldn't expect. It didn't actually get recycled. And they used that as proof that it didn't work. What they didn't realize is putting metal in there made it a contaminant, so you couldn't use those. And the fact is, if you put that in there, those have batteries in them, and they will catch on fire and burn down a recycling facility.
Right.
And everybody's talking about how great this author was for exposing the lies, and I'm looking at it as like, that's an ecological disaster waiting to happen. Somebody's going to catch on fire. I think that's a horrible idea. Let's not talk about that. Let's not do this. But anyway, that's complete
funny.
aside.
That's funny.
But so 71% of Americans, when they're surveyed, say they recycle every day. How many people do you think actually recycle every day? What's the actual participation?
20%. 2 out of 10.
What do you think, Dave?
Think about that. Yeah, I mean, it's probably in the 30%.
45. So you guys actually have less. You have less faith in humanity than I do, which is that's saying something.
I mentioned earlier 20 years in retail. 20 years, I think it just ruined. That's awesome. I'm actually encouraged by that.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting though, right? Because if 71% of people say they do it every day, but only 45% actually do it. Yeah. What is that? What's the difference?
Yeah, but
it's
like asking people. It's like asking people if they litter, right? Everyone's like, nah, but of course we got litter, bro. Some people out there doing it.
Says.
JR, I think that's a dude. What a great question. There's a phenomenal book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and I think about that book all the time. And in part, I don't know how much of it aged extraordinarily well, but some of that stuff has held really true in my own life, whether it's changing a habit like drinking all the damn time or beep, or going
that's
to the
fine.
gym,
Damn is fine.
or going to the gym or whatever. I think about some of the things that he talks about, and it's reducing the time to activate around the new habit and shortening the habit to reward cycle, right? Like defining what that reward is. And I almost think that those couple of bad press stories, like, dude, here I am referencing some potentially
I even tried to pull it up and I couldn't find it. The first thing I found was recycling rates in Denver are high. And I was like, that's what people are mad about. You have to pay for it.
So literally I'm spreading BS and
Don't do that.
Yeah, you guys aren't alone. There is so much misconception out there of what actually happens in recycling, and nobody believes that it works. And
I think that's the problem is there's a lack. For me, the habit changed as far as my commitment to it when I felt like the reward was gone, which you just said was like that virtue signal, was the ability to pat myself on the back and say, I'm a good boy. And
I'm a good boy, or I get a nickel for taking this can back when you're a poor college student.
Jesus just looked down and went, yes. He recycled that one, and then he saw me throwing away and he went, damn it.
He's a good steward. He's a good steward.
He was good. I must die for this. But anyway, I must kill myself for this.
Yeah. So
but anyway,
which generation do you think recycles at the lowest rate?
Lowest rate? The boom booms.
What do you think, Dave?
These young mother trucks.
Gen Z?
Yeah, Gen Z recycles at the lowest rate.
They don't care.
They don't know. They don't.
Honestly, most of the studies I've seen show it's because they have heard their whole lives that this stuff doesn't work, that recycling doesn't work, and that you're actually making the situation worse by putting the material in the green bin, blue bin, whatever. And so they think it's going to go to this sortation facility and then immediately end up in the landfill. So let's just cut out the middleman with the extra fuel and just put it right into the trash.
So maybe we need more field trips to the recycling facility for us to start to believing
Robert
that this is
F.
happening.
Kennedy Jr. will make sure that everybody gets a good education. I'm not.
So you're assuming he's going to be a part of the incoming administration at this point.
The FDA, but I think Dave's onto something. And JR, I mean, you're doing it right now. Oh my God. Where'd you guys go?
Your lighting just got incredible because you.
Sorry.
Oh, the lighting was better.
And JR, you're doing it right now where it's like, this is a totally, I did not expect to find out that plastics recycling has been effective even to 70%. And I think that's where like there could be a shift in herd mentality, but I joke about RFK, but it would almost be like, you almost need Swifty to go up there and be like, you know what's cool? Dropping this in the green bin. And like, and I
Influencers.
Everything else about Gen Z, just to speak in overgeneralizations that would offend entire generations of people, they have absolutely no chance. They are so hosed. They have no chance. Lila and Walker are going to fight through, your kids are going to fight through Justin, and they're going to rule just from like a basic intellectual perspective over that generation that's in high school right now or college. Like a lot of them were my employees or have been employees for me. And I can tell you their faith in institutional things is negative. Like it is inverted from how I grew up. I grew up believing in the government. I grew up believing in the church. I grew up believing that cops were good. You know, I grew up believing all those things. For the most part, I would say they would all say none of those institutions are trustworthy. And so if the government's the one saying you should recycle, they're already like, yeah, but
I'm
why?
good. Yeah, I'm good. I got other
I'm not
things
going to get your
do.
COVID shot, which I still have dope 5G. So y'all are missing out.
So you're saying recycling's presence on TikTok is limited?
Yeah.
Yes. It's limited in anything that they're
If
paying
they started
attention
doing
to.
Kevin's move,
should-
dude, they could start to have some followers, bro.
Maybe Microsoft, instead of saying you throw your items away in the trash, you recycled them. You know?
Yeah. There we go.
I mean, it's
So,
simple things, right?
The lack of participation and lack of infrastructure are real issues for the system. So not everything that you put in there is going to be recycled, but the great majority of it, if you're following the municipal code.
So
and you're actually cleaning it, to your point, Dave.
You ever been to one of those places where it's like super confusing on what goes in what bin? I also think that is a challenge. Man, you go to like Disneyland and there's a bin for forks, there's a bin for cups, there's a bin for plates, a bin for napkins.
I was at the airport, I think after I saw you guys when I was leaving Denver, and I was looking at the receptacles because they have those like 3 different trash cans there.
Yep.
And this lady, she was probably in her mid 50s, maybe late 50s. She had this Starbucks cup, and she was holding it, and she was just staring at these trash cans, like, what in the hell do I do with this thing? And then she ended up putting it in the recycling. And I almost wanted to scream at her. It's like, no, that doesn't go in there unless you clean it out.
How is this not an area where Elon and AI have not just gone, let's just solve this with small robots that scan the item and put it where it's supposed to go, clean the dang thing? I mean, I would say
you haven't seen all the scary movies about the little robots, Kevin.
I'm fine with them.
Come on now.
I would say
way too
the
scary.
only thing that as far as consumer facing that we've even felt real confident about from a co-pilot, like AI perspective, is image recognition and translation.
They've got that. They're working on that. There are 3 or 4 companies that I'm working with that have robotics with AI.
Hell yeah.
Issue with the images is some of the packages could be multiple different materials.
Sure.
We're getting into the weeds here, but if you just look at something, you can't really tell what plastic that's made out of.
You cannot judge the content of its character by the color of its skin.
So most recycling
This is a life
facilities
lesson from plastics.
Yeah. So
you don't know what it's made of until you really got to know it.
Till you put it in your mouth, till you take a bite of this plastic and you really get out.
So most recycling facilities use what's called an optical sorter, and it uses near infrared to figure out what the material actually is. That's the easiest way to do it. But having the robots to actually pick those for certain products actually makes a ton of sense. And they're doing it today. It's just not at scale yet. Have you guys ever received a breakdown of the Denver recycling system? Was it ever mailed to you that said, here's what you can put in the bin, here's what you can't?
On our bin is an instruction like that.
Okay.
Oh.
How detailed is it?
Couple pages. No, I'm just kidding. It's like it has like 5 sections, and I think under each 5 thing, there's like, call it 4 or 5 things listed. So it's probably 20, 30 things at most. Because
I'm looking at the Denver breakdown.
Have they mailed it to me? Probably.
But if it's visible, if it's right there where you're actually recycling, that's better than most. That's better because when I moved here,
nicer than mine.
You haven't. You don't have that.
I have a green one. It has no additional instruction.
One of them has
the top.
Huh? I'm just kidding. What city do you live in?
You're about to get doxxed.
Yeah, your zip code's just nicer. I'm just that part of Denver. My part of Denver, just the bins are old. They haven't updated them. It's interesting that we're even talking about this because I think some of the recycling initiatives that I've seen legislation around, none of them were directed at making it easier to understand what and how.
Yeah.
But I've never looked on their site either. I just trusted a non-existent Westward article from a decade ago.
So do you have any clue what's actually accepted in the bin? You just go based off of like, my gut's telling me this is recyclable, so I'm going to throw this thing in the bin.
All of my aluminum cans.
All right.
And
that's good.
Any plastic jugs.
That's also good.
That's it.
And so for plastics in Denver, it's rigid plastic bottles, jugs, jars, tubs, cups, containers, anywhere from a 1 through 7. Do you know what a 1 through 7 is?
The numbers on the bottom.
Yeah.
Is this
do you know what those stand for?
.com?
No, hot or not, man.
I do not know what they stand for. I don't.
Todd Afshar.
That guy just got a shout out on this podcast just randomly, just a drive-by.
You may call it spontaneous. In fact, you guys can call me Mr. Spontaneous.
Yeah, love it. I love the fact that's still going. So yeah, that from a plastics perspective, that's what you can. So you can obviously do steel, cans, aluminum.
But to your point, JR, it is tough. Like that's why we use a company here in Denver. It's called Ridwell. Yeah. And I was just pulling up their website, right? Basically what we do is that they collect the hard to recycle items, things like batteries, light bulbs, old, you can do old shirts, stuff like that. Things like plastic film, it says. So that's the part where I always have to ask Kim, can I put this in our recycling bin or do I have to Ridwell this? Like, I'm making that decision because I'm like, it can't go it's not supposed to go in the trash, right? Where am I supposed to put it?
You guys are doing more than 90+% of Americans.
And the rinsing stuff, man. I didn't realize the rinsing stuff was a big deal.
And by you guys, you mean just Dave. I'm not doing any of that crap.
Well, I'm more talking Kim, if we're being honest. Dave is being dragged into the industry.
Yeah, but if she wasn't there and it was me instead, and you went, "Hey, do I throw this here or there?" I'd go, "I don't care."
Yeah, wherever you want it to go.
Yeah.
All right, and we kind of already talked about the things that you guys recycle. If you're at the store and you're buying a product, does the type of material that it's packaged in make any difference to you at all? Will you make a decision based off?
No.
I want to say no.
What kind of decision are you talking about?
It's like if you saw, hey, there's one brand that's in a plastic package, and then right next to it, there's a brand that's in a paper box.
Like two different spaghetti noodles?
Or something like that.
Oh, that's actually perfect. So my Berea noodles come in a box, and those are from, King Soopers, shout out. Just kidding.
Yeah, King Soopers.
Trader Joe's then has a bag with noodles in it.
Yeah.
You're saying, does that drive my decision?
If they were sitting right next to each other, would you choose one over the other just based on the packaging material?
I think the box would win in a fight, but I might choose the plastic because it's squishier and easier and feels good in my hand.
Yeah.
I will buy Liquid Death water, even flat, as aluminum water versus buying a plastic water bottle.
Why?
Propaganda. I mean, like literally, like I just think, the
Kevin likes
recycling is way more reliable than plastic recycling. See this article that doesn't exist from 10 years ago that really primarily focuses on weed and weed-related concerts in the Denver metro area.
Wait, you're touching on an important subject though, because people do make that decision because they think PET bottles, those water bottles, aren't going to get recycled.
That's literally, dude. That is the one decision I could think. Now, I have in the past bought like one of those boxes of water. Never again. Never in a million years. In fact, I'll tell you, you want a hill that I'll die on is plastic straws. Like anybody who tried to bring these paper straws.
I was going to bring up the straw
Paper does not belong in the water containment and or transfer game. I stand by that.
It doesn't belong in your mouth. Like
water and paper do not get along except for it's in the toilet to dissolve that thing, dude. Don't give me plastic toilet paper, but outside of that.
Well, because you got to get that spray clean, bro. You got to get that spray clean. Talk about sustainability here.
I'll go.
Here we go now. Here we go. Yeah.
No, it's like if you look at paper cups, they have plastic lining on them because that's the only way you keep them
podcast. This is just a whole new podcast about sustainability. Period. Now
he opened it with sustainability.
Next thing, bidets. That's the next week's topic.
That's why I crap in the garden and I bidet into my coffee maker.
Got to be made out of plastics, though, people.
Most definitely. If you're going to learn anything from this conversation, is plastics are better than everything, and everything you own should be plastic. And make sure it's all polystyrene. So, obviously, we got an election today. Are you guys active politically? Active.
What do you mean
I mean, like
active?
Define active.
You stay in touch. You know what's going on. You're voting. We don't need to talk about who you're voting for or anything like that. I'm just curious. Are you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I would say I try to stay engaged in political issues locally, nationally, and geopolitical issues I just want to have an opinion about.
So that was the next question. Local level as well. Dave, are you tied in on what's going on in your county, your city?
I think the older that I've gotten, it has mattered more. And I also think even when Kevin and I were working out at the gym today, I said to him, I'm like, hey, did you vote? Right. He's like, yeah, I did the mail in. Right. We talked about that. And then we started talking about all the other stuff outside of voting for president that you vote for.
Oh, yeah.
And right. And that was just an interesting conversation about all the other local things that are happening. So yeah, I mean, I think I could always personally do better. I think people like Kevin, people like Kim, right, my wife, people like my dad, I kind of aspire because they're pretty well tuned and plugged in. And I typically take the approach of trying to get their opinions and then formulating my own opinion, right, based on
opinion shopping.
I like their
research. It's like, I ain't got time for this, so I'm going to ask somebody else.
Well, then I build my own Mr. Potato Head of what I think. You know, I may take Kevin's ear, but I like Justin's smile a little bit more.
I love that. I love that so much.
So here we've got, I'm in unincorporated Indian land, so I don't have a city council. So I've got a county council. And the only thing I was really concerned about is we got this one highway that gets us into Charlotte. And it takes forever to get from here 10 miles into Charlotte. And they're talking about widening that thing. You're damn right I voted for yes on that thing. We need
Absolutely.
3 lanes on each side. Get me to Charlotte faster. Anyway,
we have we had a ton of legislation locally on ours. It was crazy.
So the next thing is there is legislation in Colorado that I specifically want to talk about. Are you aware of the Producer Responsibility Program, otherwise known as HB 22-1355?
HB 22-1355.
Yeah. Otherwise known as the Statewide Recycling Act.
Oh. I've seen maybe an ad about this.
Okay. Do you have any idea what it was about?
No. I mean, I remember it being vote yes.
I thought you were talking about the one with the animal fur. That's what I was trying to look up. I was like, yeah,
the animal slaughter one.
Classic, yes.
No, the animal slaughter one. No, JR, I don't recall this at all.
So what this law is something called extended producer responsibility. Have you ever heard that phrase?
No.
So the idea behind the law is that brands or whoever is selling a package into a certain state, city, whatever, have to pay a fee into what's called a producer responsibility organization. That organization collects all of those fees, and then based on an assessment that the state does, invests that money into infrastructure for new recycling technologies, expanding capacity, things like that. So all of this is new to you. You haven't?
No. Yeah. I just read a little bit of it. 120 grand in fiscal 23 or something.
Looks like it was 2022. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Colorado, from my opinion, actually has the most we'll call it industry friendly EPR law. And
really?
So these kind of things are a huge part of my day-to-day, like keeping track of legislation, different things that are going on, making sure that these laws are reasonable and that they work for you, the consumer, the state, the municipality, and for industry, so we can make sure that it actually works.
Is that why you had such a mean tone when we didn't know anything about this?
No. And if I had a mean tone, I apologize.
I'm just kidding.
I'm going to check the tone.
This back, you're going to be like, Dave needs therapy just as much as Kevin. I never thought I'd say that. But like, that's only for that comment. But that's like, JR, I think that is a phenomenal call out. Like, even reading through this, I think if it were, and it may just get lost in the noise and more contentious items or issues, but to clarify for a layman, this legislation is directly tying the cost of innovating to make recycling more effective and easier back to the manufacturers, the companies, corporations, whoever that were responsible for driving the primary amount of that particular product into the economy to begin with?
Yes.
Okay.
In a nutshell, that's what it does. There are states that do this really well, and they're kind of based on Europe. It's really the biggest issue that plastics has for it, just from a high level, is everything you guys have already talked about. It's the perception that it's polluting, it's wasteful, it's this, that, or the other. So we need to change that narrative. We need to change the idea that just because it's plastic means it's going to be polluted. So how do we do that, right? We recycle more. We need to have more of this material end up back in the economy for a second, third, fourth, fifth time. And the other way to do that is to really drive these conversations at a legislative level. Like, we really need to have things like this that are driving new investments, so we can prove to Gen Zers that this stuff actually is going to get recycled. And this isn't just for plastics. It's paper, metal, glass, all of it. Any kind of package is supposed to go into that.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a normal reaction, JR, but you touched on something that even when I was reading it, right, that gives me that initial gut, I guess, pause, is it sounds great in theory, but then I worry about who's collecting the fees and what do they do with said fees.
And it's a nonprofit, and who oversees that nonprofit? That nonprofit sounds like it could be run by Tony Soprano.
So I know these guys.
Waste management, you know.
So I know these guys. So if you want to really know, it's run by the big brands. So think Procter and Gamble, Kraft, all of those guys. They've come together because they figure, hey, we're paying into this system. We want to make sure that the money goes to the right kind of investments. The problem with these kind of laws is making sure that they don't become a slush fund when the state of Colorado is coming up short on whatever budgetary item that they didn't fully fund. And because the industry, so people that I work with, other people within the industry, support these kind of laws in theory if they're done right, because we really want more material to get recycled, and we want to prove that our products are recyclable and they are being recycled today. And so these kind of things are great if they're done this way. When they're done like they're done in California, that's a completely different conversation that will last another hour and a half, that we don't need to go down that path. Just know it's not good. It is not going to work. It's going to be a real mess. But anyway, yeah, I was just curious if you knew anything about it, because this is a huge thing in the packaging industry, which is a huge part of plastics. So.
No, yeah, I don't remember that specifically, but like Dave and I were reflecting on, and again, to not be political, but a lot of the legislation that has come out locally for us has been very progressive. And so it feels like you're voting yes on a lot. And so sometimes you're like, where's all the money for all this coming from? And who's managing that exactly?
Yeah.
So
it's going to come out of this EPR program.
Well, right. Well, but then
here's your slush fund.
You look at local, you know, you look at local economy, and local economy is still thriving. So
yeah.
It's just
last topic that I actually have listed, but we can talk about other stuff after this. But have you ever heard of the UN Global Plastics Treaty?
Definitely not.
The UN we suck at Final Jeopardy.
Plastics.
We should have the Final Jeopardy, and it shows up. I bid nothing. $0.
It's the UN GPT.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
My
so
God.
What's interesting is
I know about the Chat GPT.
you have something in common with nearly every U.S. senator, because none of them had any clue that this was going on.
You can't read.
So I've been in DC 3 or 4 times in the last, probably the last 10, 11 months, just meeting with different Senate and House offices to talk about how this and other topics are going to affect jobs in their either state or district. And every single time I brought up the UN Global Plastics Treaty, they looked at me like, what is this? What's going on? It's like, this is a problem. This is a problem that you guys have no clue that this thing is happening. But so from a high level, the idea is to get all of the countries together to solve plastic pollution. So you
That's
guys
already
are not
bad PR for plastic.
Well, yeah, and it's
Getting everybody together to solve it is like, hey.
Yeah. And so we're talking about solving the most carbon friendly out of all of the different packaging options too.
Yeah.
It's like,
Where's the paper summit?
yeah. But anyway, I don't want to bash paper because paper's great for other things. But I know you guys aren't plastics experts, but what would you think would be in a treaty to solve for plastic pollution based on everything we've talked about today?
Dave,
if I was asking you to do
we each get to put 2 items into the plastic treaty. You can put more, but you have to put 2.
I'm loving it. So
I'll let you go first, but we're doing this snake style then.
Clear instructions on how and what and where to recycle.
I like it.
I would say there would be a goal of recycling. I'm going to say percentage of like recycle ratio to manufactured ratio goal.
Recycle rate is all that's talked.
Like an expert like I would know, there would be a recycle rate target. Go ahead, Dave. That's mine.
I mean, I think the other thing is some sort of, I would guess it's either a fee structure around the manufacturers again of the like plastics product. Yep.
Yeah.
And or like, I think either a fee and or like a penalty or kind of both, right? I think there's probably elements of you do good, right? But to be a part of this, you pay a fee. You do bad, you don't do this.
And then probably some cleanup effort committing some sort of resources. We're going to give 1,000 man hours per donkey or whatever. I don't know.
Or whatever. So what about like
transparency?
What about like third world countries? Countries that don't have like waste systems. What do you think? Because really that's where a lot of this waste is coming from. That's where a lot of the ocean plastics are coming from.
So
countries that don't have.
It's to fund a system to build some sort of sustainable, a building block of sustainable recycling and
Do you think the UN is talking about any of those things right now?
Based on your tone?
Of the 4 things that we said to put in the treaty?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 1 or 2 of them? None?
No.
We got 0?
God, no. They are not even close to that.
We got none?
They're talking about
none yet.
Chemicals of concern. They're talking about banning specific plastics, production caps. They're talking about, I'm going to tell you, if you want to spend some time and get a headache, read the charter of that Global Plastics Treaty. It's like an ad-lib version of a charter for a team project in high school. It's really bad. It's really bad. But yeah, this effort, and I think even the industry had a lot of hope that, well, maybe not a lot of hope. They had some hope that some positive would come out of this. Maybe there would be some investments in infrastructure. We would build waste management systems in third world countries to collect and keep that plastic from getting into the environment. But now all we're talking about is just cap and trade and not producing as much plastics, banning products like polystyrene and PVC. Not solving the problem.
Those same people probably part of this UN Council. And you want to talk about, I think the greatest wake-up call this election cycle is, oh my God, they're all idiots. And they've all been idiots this whole time. And it's not just here, it's through the whole globe and through all of history. And I say that as a 40-year-old now, just waking up to my own idiocracy. But like, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't have the time, invested interest, or financial backing that's saying, go learn more about the real thing about plastics. They've got some sort of constituent that read a Westward article 10 years ago and goes, if you try to do anything responsible with plastics, I'm going to take that as you're in big corporate plastics pocket, and now you're just a shill. And I think like this is where you need like Bill Nye the Science Guy to do let's do a real recap of like where plastic goes.
Yeah.
Like all the way down to, you know, some of the most influential, I think, voices for change around taking care of the environment are kids. Like if Lila or Walker really started jacking me up about recycling, I'm going to start recycling a lot more. Now, I'm a fairly influential uncle figure in their lives, but I feel like early on in my life, part of the reason we're even talking about this is Captain Planet mattered to me.
Yeah, man.
Dave used to yell at me about littering because littering was like a big deal. Recycling bins became a thing when we were kids. Like that happened in our garage where it was like, what do you mean I got to do this and this? Like, okay, I guess. Yeah. And I think we lost a lot of faith in that system to the point where now, I mean, dude, there are people yelling about controlling the weather based on whether or not we're upset at somebody else's political opinion. I doubt they're going to take the time to go, we should bring in an expert about this and really get to the bottom of it, and or try to come up with a solution. That's what I was thinking about with the third world countries is like, man, nobody gives a bleep because there's no money in it for them. Like
that is 1,000% correct.
Unless it was like the UN said, tell you what, next big government contract goes to whoever cleans
you
up
get
all
one of
the
these
recycling.
slush fund. You get some of this slush fund if you do XYZ.
Yeah. You want us to buy your missiles?
All it is there's big money in anti-plastics because of the Dr. Turtle photos and the fact that everybody wants to do the right thing. Everybody wants to protect the environment. Plastics industry wants to protect the environment too. And I think that's the part that we're doing a really bad job of communicating to guys like you, to kids, to anybody. We just do a terrible job of telling our side of the story and letting you guys know that and when you look at it holistically, our products are really actually good for the environment. If you want to decarbonize, you want to meet climate goals and ambitions, you're going to need more plastics because you got to lightweight cars because there's a ton of plastics in cars. All your houses are wrapped probably with a Tyvek or an EPS foam, so a polystyrene foam like styrofoam for thermal insulation. All of these things are required in order to get to the next step of a more green economy and energy grid, all the above. And we do a bad job of talking about it. And it's a shame.
I mean, you said it earlier in the podcast, Justin, is it like you see these images in the ocean and the plastic is what is floating, right? So there's that image, I think, burned into a lot of people's brain of like this plastic equals bad.
Yeah. It's an emotional argument. I love sea turtles, man. When Jamie and I were on our honeymoon, we went to Maui. The only time I've ever been to Hawaii. And we were in Lahaina, which is like gone now, that's sad in and of itself. But
it's gone.
But I was walking along a beach. We just had like this some poke, and then there's these sea turtles that were freaking surfing, like into shore and out, just right there.
Longboards or shortboards?
No, just body surfing, like Adam Frazier at
another shout out
in 2003 or 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love sea turtles. I get excited when I see sea turtles, and I want to protect them. Getting rid of plastics isn't going to do that.
This was unexpectedly enlightening in a lot of ways. I think it's also so funny to consider something that I think I would have felt a lot stronger about as a kid, like probably around, 5th, 6th grade. I was probably Captain Planet, just about it. And now just reflecting on my own resistance to doing stupid little things just to make a big difference. Because again, I think a lot of, you look at the avenues that I even consumed that message through. I don't watch cartoons on Saturday mornings, and my media diet, like Lord knows where that's coming from. I feel like just that alone, you're up against, it's harder to communicate a unifying positive message than it is a divisive, angry one. Because I think like everybody in the AFC West hates the Chiefs, right? But if we wanted to drum up like a Who Loves Bo Nix podcast, like, it's just me and Dave on there right now. But well, no, there's plenty. I'm not hating, but you get it, right? Like, and I think that's where it's so much easier to get attention to say, I'm going to fix Earth. I hate plastic, versus I'm going to fix Earth by understanding this demonized.
It's complex, right? There's no simple solution to any of this stuff. And anybody who talks to you and says, I've got a simple solution to fix whatever, you just know that person's a liar. And so all these big nonprofits that make a ton of money, they'll say, how we solve climate issues and climate change? Ban plastics. Like, okay.
Right.
So now you just increase greenhouse gas emissions, and you haven't solved anything. You've actually made everything worse. And there's going to be more material that goes to landfill. You're going to need more fuel to drive this stuff around, because paper, metal, glass, all heavier than plastics. You're going to need more fuel to move it. So all of these things. And something else you said that I think is interesting. There's a study that says you're 70% more likely to share negative stories on the internet than positive ones. Absolutely. And I think you nailed it. It's dead right, because people want to get pissed off because people are angry about things, and they have no outlet. Yeah, whatever it is. People are angry at something else, and they need something to let it out on. And so they'll see a picture of a turtle with the straw in its nose, which isn't a straw, but whatever. And then they're like, to hell with plastics. Let's get rid of it. And then I spend the next 10 years of my life trying to change that narrative. Here's another weird question for you. Would you have ever guessed that I would be doing what I'm doing right now?
No.
When we met in 2002.
That's so funny. No. I don't remember when I was really thinking about that. It was definitely on a walk with my dogs. I was thinking about our group, like our friend group from really Engstrom Hall. Yeah, reflecting on that time frame. What I'm not shocked by is you being successful and influential. That's not shocking in any way, shape, or form. I think when you went and got your MBA, I wasn't like surprised, but for a little while there, I thought you would either own your own bar. That was probably later. No, I thought early on, I thought, oh, this dude's just gonna come back and teach history. Like I think,
I thought about it for a long time.
and for a lot of us, I thought, oh, we're all just gonna come back and be like Professor Bros, and I'm gonna get fired the first semester.
Have a tweed jacket with elbow pads.
But we also, I mean, Bo can attest to that maybe better than anybody. I think we fantasized that life, like we made that seem so cool when I don't think it is really all that cool.
At all. Not cool at all.
It's
But
not
like,
that
dude,
cool.
I do think it's pretty shocking to see you working for such a large industry because of how much of an independent dude you were. Like literally,
Dude,
bro,
I run into problems like now,
I bet
like
because
that.
you plugged yourself in. That's what I would say. Is like you were somebody who plugged yourself in, and you still held your guns on all kinds of, like the Sunderland soccer at 2:00 in the morning. You're just like whatever. It's the perfect example to me of just like somebody that's like, yeah, this is something I'm into. Deal with it. Or like you'd play Battlefield. Yeah, like, and I'd be like, nobody else plays that game. You'd be like, whatever, I'm doing this. Like, it's not.
Yeah, this is my thing. I didn't ask for an opinion.
And to that end, when you were like, yeah, I'm working in plastic, I'm like, what? That seems like a massive industry for you, but very cool. Or whatever, 20 minutes before, and I was like, babe, I got to shower, and then we can eat. And then you guys were like, hey, we doing this podcast thing? I was like, shh.
Yeah. All right. So this has been the Redefining Plastics Podcast. My name is Justin Riney. Thank you, boys. It's been a lot of fun.
Love it, man. Yeah, dude. Thanks, JR.